Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Dharam Singh. I am your host today, and I have a very wonderful person with me. His name is Prasad, and he told me not to start pronouncing his full name, so I'm not going to start that. So he can, he told me that if we start, it's going to be 1 hour. So anyway, so we're going to call him Prasad, and he's a lovely person. He has attended my PgMP program recently, and he successfully passed his exam. So if you don't know me, I have been training PgMPs and PfMPs, PMPs. Soon I will be starting DASM and DASSM, some of the scale agile programs. So I'm managing or running a company called vCareProjectManagement. I started this company back in Australia. That was in 2011, and just previous year, I should get 2019, I moved to California, and it's now more than 1.5 years. And this I'm enjoying. It's so far so good. I know we are staying in houses most of the time because of COVID, but whatever it is, it's actually not too bad. I was talking to my wife other day. COVID is, yes, it is impacting in different ways, but in a way it's a good thing happen. Like earlier I used to travel, and my daughter was in another place, my son was other place, so 4 people, 4 different places. At least COVID has, last 1 year we are all in the same 2-bedroom townhouse in California. So we are spending a lot of time together. So as I've been telling, look, these pandemics bring a lot of challenges. I cannot undermine the challenges people are going through mentally, physically, financially, job loss, many other things that are happening, and we can't do much with many of the things. We are waiting for vaccine. Many people are getting vaccinated, and hopefully one day the vaccine will cure everybody, and we'll be back on the normal life. But in the meantime, what we can do to stay alive and stay positive, to continue to learn. So I started this series just I think 1.5 years ago, where I was interviewing my students, previous student, PgMP student, portfolio management student, and initially I used to ask them to go through journey of PgMP PfMP, but then realized we will talk about that anyway. Why don't we bring some topics? So something Prasad already passionate about, and he will be very, very excited to talk about. So we're going to talk about some of the key topics such as strategic challenges, opportunities in project management, and impact of risk and on the benefit relation. We're going to talk about open innovation for aerospace. And given that Prasad is coming from aerospace industry, he will be talking, or his example will be around aerospace. So we will learn a lot about aerospace today, if he's willing to share that part. And business knowledge versus technical knowledge, especially for program manager, you are working to deliver benefit. We're going to talk about benefit and business knowledge versus technical knowledge. Leadership in disruptive tech world. So these are a few topics I have. I may add a few more, and you have opportunity to ask questions, guys. Please feel free to ask questions. You have a question pad, and I might take the question in between, or I will push the questions at the later stage. Okay, but continue to ask. More questions will make this session even better. So as I said, Prasad was in my class last year. I say last year, July, I think July, August, September, I think something like that, August, September. And he was really dedicated person, always ready with the questions and answers, and very, very smart. And I have no doubt about him. He's going to pass the exam very soon. So he passed his exam on 5th of November with above target, 3 above targets and two targets. I still call it very good result. So once again, thank you, Prasad, for joining my program and considering me as your mentor. It was really awesome, and you did really well as well. So, and now I'm looking forward for working with you again in PfMP space. Portfolio management. So a little bit about Prasad. Prasad has more than 25 years of experience, and coming from engineering and program management, and the concurrent management of multidisciplinary product development programs, especially in aerospace, automotive domains, and from start to end till commercialization. So he has led many cross-functional teams globally, built successful stakeholder relationships at all levels. Before his career in Mahindra, he is currently working for Mahindra Group. Mahindra Group has taken this aerospace industry, this particular company. He will tell. Prasad has been part of GE Global Research as a lead engineer at India's as a DRDO, as a scientist. So you can see, you can imagine, you're going to get a lot of scientific jargons as well. So he's a continuous learner. As you know, he has studied from IIT Madras. He's done Masters. He is a PhD student. So soon he will be Dr. Prasad. So I can't have better person than him for this topic, for today's session. So Prasad, welcome to the session. Please tell me a little about yourself.
Thanks, Dharam, and good day all of you, because it is a good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and all. So best thing is say good day. And thanks, Dharam, for a kind introduction, and thanks to you for coaching me on the PgMP, which helped me in completing the PgMP exam in less than 3 months. I started in September, completed in November. That was really a great achievement. And as Dharam mentioned, I am currently working as a program manager, quality assurance in one of the Mahindra Group company, GippsAero in Australia. We build a general aviation aircrafts. We have 2 products, 8-seater and 10-seater aircrafts, primarily used for transportation and flight purposes. And before moving to Australia, I was in India heading a couple of aircraft programs in India. And I was primarily managing the first public-private partnership aircraft program between India and Mahindra Group. And prior to that, I was also in general aviation, General Electric on some of the automotive programs.
Yeah.
And I thought probably this session would help in sharing some of my experiences with you all. And thanks to Dharam for organizing this webinar. And I hope the next 1 hour will be great use to you, as well as I get some benefit of learning from you people.
Great. Thank you, Prasad. So I'm sure we all are going to learn a lot from you, and especially, your experience of, lots of experience you have. We will talk about your PgMP journey probably almost at the end. So we'll keep that best part for later.
Yeah.
And as I'm already encouraging my people here, please keep sharing your questions. Asking question is going to be good for you. And I will read most of the question at the end. If possible, I can read early as well. It
Sure.
Depends on the topic. Okay. So Prasad, and by the way, before I forget, I'm going to share a video code a little later, and I know when to share. So please stay with us till end, and you will get the video code. So, okay, Prasad, ready?
Yeah.
So Prasad, I have a few questions, and I will ask this question from you, and tell us the best of your knowledge. What are we saying? Nothing, no good or bad answer. So whatever you feel like based on your experience. Okay.
Yeah.
So my first question for you is, what are the strategic challenges and opportunities from a project manager's perspective, especially in aerospace industry? What do you think?
Good, Dharam. If you look at the projects in aerospace, primarily any aircraft development is a high cost and long duration projects. And on the top of it, we have to meet all the regulatory compliance, and then we have to undergo a lot of testing and quality assurance requirements. So it takes quite a long time to complete any of the aircraft programs. So any delay in the aircraft projects, what would happen is that will lead to huge cash flow problems to the company, and then we will be losing the contract, because even before we launch the aircraft project, we'll be signing the contracts with the customers that we will be delivering the aircraft before so and so date. So failure to do that will lead to a major failures in the lasting of contracts, and then also a negative media coverage and cancellation of the projects and all. So what is at the same time, what happens is, because being a very complex program, we'll be leveraging several suppliers all over the world to get the appropriate systems or sub-assemblies to build the aircraft. So what happens is, any changes to the cost of the raw materials, or changes to the exchange rates, or any changes to the supply chain, all these things would impact our aircraft programs very dramatically. So what I see is that the important challenge, a strategic challenge for us is how do we collaborate with our partners, and making sure that as a project manager, how do we facilitate the collaboration between the different companies, and making sure that the transfer of information moving from one place to other place, because we need to make sure that the system that developed in one company need to be integrated and then brought back into our system. So which requires huge amount of facilitation requirements. And also, as I mentioned, second part of it is the supply chain, because we can't build every aircraft in our own factory. What happens is we rely more on outsourcing several programs and several assemblies coming from various parts of the world. So any disruption to the supply chain management would lead to large delays into our aircraft project management. So this is another major area that we all need to look into that, because even though if you look at the globalization, so though it helped many ways in terms of transferring the technology and then getting the work done, doing the collaboration with various other companies. But what happens is any changes in the economics in that particular country would impact the supply chain, and that will relay the products coming to our place, and then we integrating and completing the aircraft on time. So managing the collaborations with the various companies and managing the supply chain is some of the major strategic challenges that I see at this point of time. But at the same time, what happens is, if you look into the military aerospace programs, because they are primarily dependent on the defense budgets. So as long as we have the defense budget, you will have the aircraft programs existing. But because of any social or economic or political reasons, if there is a cut down in the defense budgets, it automatically reduces the budgets available for the aircraft programs also. And the project managers have to deliver it within the available budget and within the available resources. That becomes another challenge for the project managers. What I see in terms of the opportunities is leveraging, because now what happens is that taking the advantage of the digitization in terms of using the product lifecycle management programs, or using the rapid prototyping, because in most of the aircraft projects, before we get into the final aircraft release, we will be developing a lot of prototyping, and trying to get the prototype parts from various places may take a longer time. But if you use a different technologies, a rapid prototyping, a 3D printing kind of thing, that would help us to get the required parts in no time, and then complete the aircraft development projects in a faster way. So use of PLMs, use of rapid prototyping, designing in a modular concept, because rather building a bigger assembly and then trying to source it from a different place, but if you can design it in a small modules, it will be much easier to outsource and then get the parts in a much faster manner. So these are the various things that you can look into in terms of the project management in aerospace.
Perfect. And what's the typical budget for your programs?
The aircraft programs that what we manage in Mahindra Group, they are all general aviation aircrafts. We do 8-seater and 10-seater aircrafts, and they are around $30 million each of the aircraft program development program is. And cost of each aircraft will be around 1.5 million, and it's primarily used for transport, freight, and freelancing applications.
And generally, how long it takes for building a full aircraft?
The aircraft development, we recently got one of the aircraft certified by Civil Aviation Safety Authority in Australia. And that program we launched almost about 5 years ago. So it took almost 5 years for us to complete one aircraft development program. But when it comes to the production of the aircraft, yes, we that depends upon your production capability and how do you scale up your production. And our company has the ability to build about 25 aeroplanes per year.
Yeah, sounds like very complex the program itself. So many vendors to work with, so many moving parts. So your stakeholder engagement is very, very key for in this case what you learn in PgMP can be useful. Having a very detailed schedule with not going too far and keeping everything together is really, really important for programming.
Absolutely, that's what I'm talking about, the collaboration, making sure that ensuring that you stick to the project schedules, because the impact is very high. If any delay in delivery of the aircraft would lead to loss of contract, which means huge millions of dollars of loss to the company.
Okay, good. Thank you. So my next question for you, how does the company manage to shorten the development time? I know you talked about 5 years, while adding more projects with limited resources. The challenge actually for every portfolio manager, program manager.
What happens is we can't keep on infinitely adding the resources to take up the new projects. And as I said, aircraft programs are very complex and then they highly technically involved. It may not be possible for us to do everything in-house. The best way of, again, doing the aircraft programs, taking more number of projects, is again collaborating with the different what you call our other companies where there is a technical know-how, and then continue to build the process. That is the best way of doing the things here.
I think the follow-up question I have is about the open innovation. Whether open innovation provides better option for aerospace industry.
Definitely. So, in fact, if you look at the very big aerospace OEMs like Boeing, Airbus, and our engine manufacturers such as GE or Rolls-Royce, they have already started the open innovation where they are working with the new startup companies, and then they are inviting the new concepts, and then they are working together on developing on the concepts where they have shortlisted the best of the innovation projects. So what happens, especially this open innovation differently helps in terms of the cost and risk sharing, because even when we are doing our 10-seater aircraft, we don't have all the capabilities in-house. We have to go and then collaborate with some of the companies in the US to develop our engine management system for our company when we are doing the 10-seater aircraft. So that way what happens is you can spread the cost and spread the risk associated in developing it. But at the same time, the best advantage of open innovation is that you can access the external competencies, because you can't have everything in-house. So the best way of doing it is that find out where the knowledge exists and then go collaborate with them, and that will reduce the overall product development cycle. And at the same time, what happens is now most of the other companies are coming up in terms of the licensing and technologies. For example, what happens if you talk about the Rolls-Royce, what they do is that if you look at any of the aircraft OEMs, Rolls-Royce supplies the engines. And then if the OEM has to change the engine at the end of its life cycle, or if it has to maintain the engines, it will be too expensive, because they need to have a separate system to do all the parts. But Rolls-Royce has come up with the new procedures where they do the licensing service, where they provide the product services to them. And then what happens is they give power by hour kind of thing. In terms, when the OEM flies the aircraft using their engine, they pay that amount of money to the Rolls-Royce, and Rolls-Royce take care of the entire engine development. So what happens is, as a part of this engine development, Rolls-Royce has to work with the OEMs, and at the same time, it has to work with the subcontractors. So in these situations, the open innovation works very well to them, because they need to work with two different people on either end of it. And at the same time, what happens is this open innovation helps even for us to get into the new product development, because the engineers are the people, internal people, whoever is working, they will be having in-depth knowledge in one area, but when they have to work on developing the other systems, they will be working with the different companies, and so they will be expanding their knowledge in the other areas also. So when they have domain knowledge in one area and expanding in other areas, there is a potential for us to come up with new innovative concepts, and that helps the company to come up with the new technologies and then launch it into the market. So there are many advantages of going with open innovation, but there are some challenges also when it comes to that, because primarily the biggest challenge I see is the fear of losing the core competency, because we do all proprietary designs and then collaborating with someone and then sharing that information of our systems to other developing agencies. There is a chances of the people taking away our knowledge and then losing the core competency. And also there is certain challenges in terms of managing the intellectual property rights, because who is going to develop and who will own the intellectual property of the rights on that intellectual property. And at the same time, coming up with win-win collaborations with the developing partners who would be having a major stake on the developed product. And then also the biggest challenge I see at this point of time in terms of the open innovation is the culture of the organization itself, because not every organization is ready to do the open innovation at this point of time. So there are benefits, but at the same time, there are some of challenges in terms of open innovation in aerospace.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for giving this knowledge about open innovation. Yes. I have let's say there are a few questions, but I will take one question here. How did COVID shipping and shutdown affecting the supply chain timelines, and how did you deal or work around with this situation?
Yeah, again, that depends upon the proper scheduling, because we also maintain certain amount of inventory planning, because while we start building the aeroplanes, you already knew about your order book and then what you need to build, and that is where the sourcing team works on how to maintain the inventory, and we will make sure that we always keep certain amount of inventory available to continue the production. But at the same time, you may have to start keeping certain amount of competencies in-house, because we also receive few things from India to build our aircrafts in Australia. And sometimes it so happens that we will not be able to receive the assemblies on time. So we still keep certain amount of competencies in-house, so that in the worst case situations, the OEM is in a position to start building those assemblies.
So your manufacturing is not getting impacted because of Corona? Yeah, probably yes, to some extent.
To some extent, but it adds a lot of pressure on the system, because we have to work with the existing workforces, because since we have planned the entire workforce to do certain activity, now we have to move the resources to some other areas to fulfill the gaps in that area.
Good, thank you. All right, let me move to the next question. So we know there's to any success or failure, there's one common denominator: people. And especially in this kind of environment, we have to work with them. So how to deal with difficult staff situation now? What difficult situation like this? COVID.
Especially it is very because what happens is in the manufacturing industry, we can't build the airplanes without a person physically present and then start doing the riveting of the parts. So we can work on some of the areas where work from home may be possible for some of the administrative staff, which we have already started implementing. So most of the administrative staff and the engineers have started working from their home places. But when it comes to the manufacturing, we have no other alternative other than doing the production in-house. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we comply to the COVID restrictions imposed by the local governments. And we have to stagger our production in such a way that no close contact of multiple people at one point of the time.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we have to innovate our way of doing things.
Yeah.
And other question is the communication, because now remote and all this, there are a lot of communication barriers. And how do you eliminate such barriers?
That is a real challenge, I would say.
Yeah.
Because the main communication barrier I would see is the geographical location of the people, because the most important part is the culture and the geography where the people are living. Because now most of the programs are global programs. It's not that people are working in one place. Yeah. So the most important part of the thing is understanding the culture of the people and understanding the right technology that can be used to connect with the people. Other than this part, the other barrier I see is the culture in the organization itself and the hierarchy. Because most of the time what happens is, if the hierarchy is too complex and if you have to convey some particular important project update to the senior management, it gets filtered at many places. So it is most important to understand the organization culture and come up with the plan. How do we communicate? And that is where, when we start the project, when we start the program, it is important to understand the appropriate communication mechanisms to show that the right stakeholders are receiving the right information.
Okay, good. I'm getting lots of questions from my friend there, Amarnath. Okay, so he's worried about, like, Australia, we have so costly labor. How you, when you have you can make aircraft in India, why are you making in? So let me read the question. Building aircraft in Australia, this is surprising news. Taking that Australia has most expensive labor. So
absolutely, what Amarnath is saying, absolutely right. This is where we need to come up with the right proposition in terms of what the value that we get in Australia and what value we get in the other countries where we can, at low cost countries. So here, the reason for keeping this program here is the type certification, the certification for building the design of the aircraft, and then the production certification comes from Civil Aviation Safety Authority. So we have to build the aircrafts in Australia, but if we want to build the same aircraft in India, we also need to obtain several regulatory approvals, which will be too expensive or too time consuming. So what we do here is that we do most of the integration work in Australia, where the core competencies are still here. And whereas the low end work or the low cost work, where you need more of labor intensive, and that is coming from various places and various subcontractors.
Good. So what is the advantage of working? So I think you already told about that advantage part.
Yeah.
Let's come back to the other question later. So project scope creep, familiar word to most of the project managers, generally considered harmful. How can you keep your project goals focused without diverting from its scope, from its core objectives? So I think the question is also coming because because your projects or programs are typically very long, and scope creep can be one thing which every project has to worry about. So how do you deal with this?
Yeah, it is at the starting of the project itself. It is very critical that we understand the end goals or end objective of the project. and making sure that we bring all the stakeholders, senior management, everyone on the same line to make sure that everyone are understanding what is the final deliverables of the project or the program. But at the same time, there are likelihood of some, I will not call it a scope creep, I would call the request that coming from the stakeholders or customers to include certain features in the aircraft. But what is important in this here is that ensuring the right change management system to assess what changes that are being asked and how that impact the current program, and then what is the impact on the business case. And then we may have to start revising our business case, evaluate whether the planned business deliverables or the value that what has been planned is still be available to the company, and then start working towards either implementing or deferring those change requests to the later stage of it. But the most important part is that ensuring whatever has been agreed, make sure that that is well captured, and then you define your scope, your schedule, and thoroughly follow on that part of it, and provide the updates to the senior management where you are progressing, so that everyone are on the same page to avoid any scope creep in the future.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous thing. If you do not manage it effectively, utilizing having proper change management structure, things can go wrong very easily. We talk about bells and whistles. Just to please our customer, we try, yes, that's okay, let him please, let's do it and make him happy. But these things can be dangerous, not from the, financially you get impacted, but also it can have a big disaster. Without you have done the proper analysis throughout the very system, if you introduce a change, you may have a big problem at a later stage.
Yeah, especially it happens from the sales team because they overcome it to the customer. When the deal happens without consulting back to the engineering team or the organization project manager. So that is where the challenge comes in, to make sure that we align with what has been agreed with the customer in the past.
Yeah. So one question you wanted to avoid, but I have a question, let me ask you. Is Agile methodology good in this situation, in this way, your kind of work?
To a certain extent, yes. If you see as I mentioned, the aircraft programs are highly regulated and they are very long duration projects and very cost intensive projects. And that involves a lot of testing also. So we can use Agile methodologies when we are in the developmental phase, in terms of the research, in terms of developing the designs, where you can do multiple iterations or you're doing the simulation part of it. So there is a chances of accepting the change and then doing the iterative approach. But once you freeze the design and when it enters into the prototyping phase, that is where any changes to the design would be very expensive. So we have to start worrying about in what phases of the development we can keep the Agile process and where we have to start moving from there onwards.
Perfect. Good. Thank you. Right. So next question. Project delivers a product or output, and program delivers the outcome and also benefit. So what are your thoughts on the difference between project manager versus program manager mindset? So you have done PgMP now. You understand project manager, how the thing, but also from program manager who's delivering outcome and benefit.
If you talk from the project management perspective, when you look at the project is generally the measurable of the project I would call is on time and on budget. So they work on predefined constraints. You have scope is defined, your cost, time, everything is defined. Whereas when it comes to the program, what happens is the scope is not completely defined. It is still evolving over a period of time. And programs, generally what happens is they bring the benefits, they bring the value to the system. So
Yeah.
that is where the major difference comes in terms of the project and the programs. And also what happens is when it comes to the uncertainties, because the projects are very well defined, most of it. So the project managers will make sure that the uncertainties are minimal, or they try to avoid any of the uncertainties. But whereas when it comes to the program managers, he expects the uncertainty, and then he would be working towards how these changes are going to impact the organization, and then make sure that the benefits are not impacted, or the benefits are aligned with the organizational strategy. And similarly, what happens when you talk about the changes, managing of the change is another thing that we need to look into when it comes to the project management. So again, we try to, in the project management, we minimize any changes or whatever to make sure that they are within the given defined scope, cost, and schedules. Whereas the changes in the program management are both internal as well as external. The changes can happen in the program because of external influences, or because program has multiple components in it, and any change into one of the project or one of the component will also impact onto the overall program. So when it comes to the program management, the change management makes important point of it. And then also when we talk about the risk also, again, what happens is we try to minimize the risk in terms of any undefined risks in the project. We try to eliminate. We don't want any risks to come in the way of the project, because our overall objective is to deliver it on time and on budget. But when it comes to programs, the risks can happen at any point of the time. So it is more important we have to have adequate contingencies, and making sure that we leverage the risks in the appropriate manner to ensure that the benefits are still aligned with the organizational strategies. And the other thing I would see the primary difference when it comes to the projects and programs is that the managing of the stakeholders. Because when it comes to the project, generally what we do is that we make sure that project the stakeholders are also aligned with our project deliverables. Everyone are working towards the same project deliverables. But when it comes to the programs, because we have multiple components inside, and then several stakeholders and their expectations are different, most of the time program manager has to engage all the stakeholders and make sure that the benefits, whatever have been planned, are aligned again. So these are all the various things that we need to look when it comes to project or the programs.
Yeah. And I think one thing you mentioned, that program deliver benefit. So question I have coming from audience, are you suggesting the project are not delivering benefit, only program delivers benefit?
I would say project deliver a product or the service, whereas benefit is something like it's a long lasting. It has several, when you plug in the benefit into the organization operations, it will continue for a longer time.
Yeah, perfect. All right, moving on to next question. I do have other question. If you are thinking my question is not taken, I will be taking your question later.
Definitely.
Yeah, so there are a couple more questions sitting there. I will take them later.
Mm-hmm.
So I have other question, Prasad, from regarding value benefits. Mm-hmm. So value benefit may be modified by risk. Okay, if the risk happens. For project having high uncertainty, what kind of impact do the project risk have on the benefit relation, whether it should be considered as a threat or opportunity?
That depends upon the type of the risk. Is that risk is a threat or risk is an opportunity? So to take the advantage of that particular risk. So if I understand your question well, you are asking, can you repeat your question again?
So it's about the risk management, how the risk is, value benefit may be modified by risk. So if the risk happen, you started with a program or portfolio or project with certain value to be delivered or benefit to be realized. But because the risk, it can impact. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, how it's impacting, you know, how you minimize, whether you consider this a risk, what can risk and issue, risk or opportunity trade-off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As I said, that depends upon the nature of the risk, because if the risk is going to become a threat, it is important that you understand the impact of that risk and then how you minimize the occurrence of the risk. But when it comes to the risk being an opportunity, we will be evaluating how do we enhance the positive risk and take the advantage of the risk into the project.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So okay, let me take another question. Whether program manager are deeply inclined to business knowledge rather than technical knowledge.
I would say it should be mix of both, because
Yeah.
if you talk about the programs again, the program would have several components in it, and especially in aerospace,
Yeah.
you talk about systems, structures, avionics, instrumentation, and all. And one person cannot have everything. But at the same time, not knowing anything is also very dangerous, because you have, when you're taking an informed, calculated decisions, it is also important that the program manager be having certain amount of understanding on the technical part of it, even though he's going to leverage the subject matter experts for their opinions. But when it comes to taking the final decisions, it is important that the project program manager should also have some amount of knowledge apart from the business knowledge is important.
All right. How can program manager create a balancing act to protect growth margins and still drive innovation? So in your space, in aerospace, we talk about innovation, but at the same time we have to worry about the profit margins.
Yeah. When we talk about innovation, we need to understand what type of innovation that we are talking about, because sometimes some type of innovation could be just improvement to our process, because the people who are working in our project or program or in the company, while they have been doing it for a longer time, they may be coming up with an innovative way of improvising the process, and that would improve our productivity and reduce the aircraft build time or the program development time.
Yeah.
Or there could be altogether a new innovation where you may have to invest huge amount of efforts, or it could be improvements in your design. So very first thing what you need to understand is the type of innovation that we are talking about. And the second thing is that what is the risk and rewards associated with that particular innovation, because some of the innovations may be looking very great, but when you start investing on it, probably you may realize at the end of the day that the current system what we have been running would be sufficient enough, rather spending so much of money on developing the new innovative concept. So once we understand the reward and risk and identify the right balance between whether we continue to support the innovation or not, and that is the time the program managers have to provide adequate resources to continue on that innovation and then provide necessary relationship. And at the same time, it is not that just giving some amount of resources, because at the same time, as you continue in your day-to-day operations, there is a likelihood that we completely forget about what is happening, whether how that innovation is really progressing or not. So it is also important that we constantly follow up and then provide relevant support and resources for continuing that innovation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So while we are worrying about innovation, we have to think about, are we spending too much? It's becoming, it did cost benefit analysis, and if now your benefits are reducing or cost is increasing, then you're using that the initial business case.
That's what I'm talking about, the risk and reward. How much is the risk involved and what is the reward you're going to get on that?
Prasad, I have another question for you. So now we are moving beyond traditional leadership style. What kind of qualities and type of leadership should the future program manager should have in this disruptive tech world?
Yeah, as you see, one thing what we have noted down in this current disruptive situation is that we are becoming more and more global. The companies are the work, whatever is happening, it is not happening in your own organization. The things are becoming bigger and global. So any future leaders or future program managers should have more of global mindset, and then you should be in a position to understand and accept the new cultures. And at the same time, he need to understand the technology while he is embracing with the technology and taking it to the advantage of progressing. But it's also important that we should have some amount of human touch base to make sure that we have sense of purpose and sense of caring if you really want to become a leader. And then also with this highly innovative markets, most important is that people have to be more open to new ideas and then willing to change, our ability to change the course of direction when the things are changing. These are the kind of skills or traits that new leaders should have if they really want to succeed in the future.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. So before we were moving forward for other questions, audience questions and your PgMP journey, so let me give you, to the people who came here listening patiently, the code, PDU code, very, very important. I have shared that just now on the chat, you can note down. For people who are listening later on, so the course identifier is PMEXP PS-01. Let me repeat it. P for Peter, M for Mary, E for elephant, X for X-ray, P for Peter, dash, C for Peter, S for Sam, dash 01. So PDU code I have is 3998 4K ES 6X. X for X for what do you call it? X-ray. So 3998 4KES 6X. So I have put that on the chat as well. And somebody is listening and not able to understand my my pronunciation, please contact me. I will give you the code again. Okay. So I hope you got the PDU code, and if not, let's check your chat. So I have a few questions here, and which I thought I will be taking later on. Before I go to those questions, Prasad, would you like to talk about, some people are here to learn about your PgMP journey. When did you start? I think you started, and then what did you do? Just take a few minutes, 3-4 minutes.
Sure, Dharam. In fact, when I wanted to do the PgMP, in fact, I was not certain about how to move forward, because I have been in the program management for the last 25 years, but I was wondering that how do I obtain the PgMP certification and what is the right pathway for it. So I was just searching on LinkedIn, and then I just came across your name, and then I just pinged you saying that, Dharam, I'm seeing you that you are looking after this PgMP training. Can you please give me some directions? And you immediately came back to me saying that we have scheduled one-on-one discussions for about half an hour in the late afternoon. My time is 3 o'clock, your time is 10 o'clock, and you are still happy to come talk to me. And then you told me on how I can take forward my PgMP plan. So that really helped me. Otherwise, probably I was almost on the verge of dropping my idea that, okay, I'll continue this way. So after I talking to you, I realized, okay, what is the most easiest way of managing the PgMP? So that is where I joined your PgMP PgMP for You program.
Yeah.
And I think myself and someone from New Zealand and a few people from US and a few people from Singapore and few people from Arab Emirates. So 6 people, different time zones, different requirements. And then I was very happy that you were able to accommodate the time for all of us, and then able to provide us all the relevant training and the relevant course material. And that really helped me a lot when I started reading. In fact, I became a PMP member, and then I downloaded the SPM4. I read 4 or 5 times, this said, that said, but I was okay. Everything looks to be same to me. Yeah, this I know, this I know. But I was really not sure how do I prepare for the exam and what need to be done. That is where your course really helped me a lot in a more structured way of understanding the SPM4 and then how the exam is conducted, and especially after every 1 hour course, every 2 hours we used to have our time 11 to 1 o'clock Australia time. And the most important part I liked as a part of this program training is last 15-30 minutes of the one-on-one question is, because that is where I really understood how do I handle the PgMP exam questions. How do I use different techniques, like is it an elimination technique or what else I have to use? How do I understand? And what is PgMP expected answer versus your day-to-day activity work? So these are all some of the tricks and traits I learned. And I think within 2.5 months, I was ready for taking the exam. And before taking the exam, I completed your preparatory exams, and then I took ALA exam, and then I also took Ginger's exams. And I was very satisfied. And then I also had one-on-one session with you just before going for the exam. And you gave me some other tips, what is the best way of utilizing the time in the exam. So all this helped me and to go for the exam, finish it off in 3 hours, 30 minutes. I think I could do all the exam and came up with happily. So that's all I say.
Exactly. So that was a good, very good news for me. Although I know it was late night for me when you called, but 3 hours and 30 minutes in passing is about target. What else do you want? So, so I'm very happy to say that this is kind of normal for me, becoming normal. A lot of people rushed me recently passed his 3 hours, he completed exam. Dharam from Melbourne, he completed exam in 100 minutes to go. Actually, Emily, you were talking about New Zealand lady you were talking about. She completed the exam in 89 minutes to go. So 89 minutes, yeah. So you know the exam complexity, but and that needs a lot of mindset change and preparation. The type of question you have to do here, doing Ginger's question, which are very, very complex question, but how you're going to continue after that is more important. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your question again?
No, I'm not asking question. I'm just adding on top of it. So no question. Thank you for that. Thank you for the considering making or accepting me as a mentor. We were really privileged to be part of your journey. So Prasad, we are not done yet. I do have few questions which
sure.
I think somebody is waiting for very first to give us the first question. So what project management strategy to follow when organization goes through a disruptive reorganization, when all aspects of organizations and portfolios such as systems, process, policies, human resource, programs are in scope of reorganization?
Yes. Whether you call, whenever a reorganization happens, it is the most important part of the project manager or program manager is to make sure to know where the restructured elements have gone and understand who is your new stakeholder, and then making sure that you work with the new stakeholder and then bring him on the same page of where the project is happening. And that is the way you have to make sure that your program still continues without any problem.
Yeah, even all the whole organization is restructuring, re-strategizing, people are losing, people are going, new people coming, new technology coming.
Yeah, that's a part of the life, because that is where your skills of the project manager and the program manager comes into. If everything is given, then anybody can manage the project management and program management.
Exactly.
This is where, that is why we have this program. The PMI has come up with certain sets of procedures on how to manage the program management. We have the certain governance, how to do the project management or program management, and there are certain principles, certain procedures, and how do we engage the stakeholders, and how do we understand, how do we get the benefits out of it. So that is where your study or your experience of project management will help.
Project management, program management. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I have one more question here. Where is Australia fitting in terms of open innovation? When you're referring to India and USA, so with respect to India, USA, where Australia fits in open innovation?
Yeah, I think it's not. Open innovation is happening anywhere, whether it doesn't matter. Say, in fact, if you talk that way, when I was part of General Electric is from USA, and then I was working from India, and we were able to collaborate together, and then I was able to support the people in US in one of the automotive segment, and then I was able to come up with 3 patents, and then I have published several papers on that. So it is most important is the mindset of the people to work on the open innovation, and then if the mindset is there, and if the organization is willing, it is much easier to exploit the open innovation.
Great. So thank you very much, Prasad, and thank you everyone whoever listening to our conversation, and people who have been writing questions. Without your question, without a discussion, we cannot make this program interesting. So thank you once again, Prasad, for your insight and your sharing your experience and knowledge. It was really awesome. So, and as we go further, I think I have almost every week a program planned now. Next week, I'm going to talk with the lady coming from US, and she is she's working really hard, and she's working in defense. So I will not give you too much. You will probably see the invite very soon. So you will learn a lot from that. She will be talking more about agility and other things, and how this is going to impact or improve your program management life. So I'm looking forward to that. Her name is Naga, by the way, and she will be very open and excited, to talk about various topics. So please join. And if you want to talk to me for anything related to project, program, portfolio management, or if you are looking for scaled agile training, or maybe others, a new training coming up as a DA, discipline agile. If you have not learn about that, PMI is bringing a new certificate like DASM, DASSM, so it's Scrum Master, Senior Scrum Master role from PMI. It's not another Scrum Master. I did a training yesterday to learn about that. It's not another Scrum Master. It's a different Scrum Master role, which you will learn if you are attending such programs. So let me know if you have any interest to find out more about my programs, or how we can collaborate at the organizational level, at the chapter level, or at the personal level. I'll be more than happy to talk about. So thank you once again to all of the people who have joined today, and thank you, Prasad, for such an insight from you. And thanks all the participants for staying. Some of the people I know late night, mid of the morning, or it's all of them. So thank you once again, and please, guys, please stay safe and look after yourself, look after the community, and do well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. And if you have any questions, feel free to send messages to Dharam, and then he can forward it to me, or you can connect me through LinkedIn, and we can continue further. And I'm happy to share whatever experiences I learned over the last 25 years. Thank you.
Definitely, yeah. So Prasad is also available on LinkedIn, so please reach out to him. He'll be more than happy to connect with you and share the professional experience he has gained last 25 years, and he has gained last 4 months ago in PgMP. So guys, thank you, and see you again very soon. Bye-bye.